I broke my left arm, my left elbow, my left femur. I crushed my fourth vertebrae. I broke my 3 right toes, punctured a lung, broke my nose, and had a severe concussion. And so, yeah, have absolute no memory of this whatsoever. And we were just out having a good time that day into the evening. Yeah.
Welcome to a Face Project podcast.
Hello?
It's just pure life. It's pure
my
innocence.
mom
it's
is a
pure
writer.
gratitude.
So I ended up in America.
I am an adopted
because
Korean and have been all my
For me,
life.
it's a perfect blend of science and
I
creativity.
was screaming, I will live over here till I die.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a Face Project podcast, stories told by volunteers from around the world. I'm your host, Natalie Jennings, and this is episode number 5. And just a side note, in case you have some little ones listening along with you today, this episode contains some strong language and some adult content. So you might want to put some headphones on your kiddos or earbuds in yourself. One of the themes that surfaces in Terri's telling of her story today is gratitude and being grateful for the things that you have. For some reason, gratitude is something that I've become more and more in tune with the last couple of years, and try my best to have a daily gratitude practice, or at least make sure to silently or not so silently give thanks for the things that I am grateful for. I've found that focusing on the simplest things, being able to see, having a great family, having the most loyal, sweet dog who always wants to hang out with me, recognizing these things and having gratitude for them has really, really enriched my daily life, and certainly helps if I'm having a bad day to make it a little bit better. So in the spirit of gratitude, we thought we'd ask a few people what they are most grateful for. Here's what they had to say.
What are you most grateful for?
I am most grateful for my...
You can say it again.
Oh, here we go. Okay, let's hope this isn't a pattern.
So what are you most grateful for?
I am most grateful for being healthy. I'm grateful for my friends and family. I'm grateful for people who take the time to listen. And I'm grateful to be able to listen.
Ooh. I am grateful for my daughter because I didn't know if I'd be able to have kids.
Oh, what am I grateful for? Well, I'd have to say my family and good health. Those are probably the most important things in life.
So it was one of those things, I saved up as much money as I could and just put everything in the back of my truck and drove out and found Boulder and, it was great. Had met these guys. I moved in with 2 dudes and they had a huge crew of friends, and so all of a sudden just was kind of, enveloped into this kind of friendship with all these folks. Hung out with these guys though all the time, so really felt like we were good friends, even though I hadn't been there that long. And there was the 4 of us, and so it was B, S, and T, I'll just use the initials. And so, yeah, we're just getting shit canned. There's really no kind of soft way of putting it. But this was not out of the norm. We would go out and party all the time and drive home, and it was never, it's horrible to say now, but we used to drink and drive. That's just what we did. basically we left the bar. I think we closed the bar down. And T had just gotten his old, it was an old, muscle car. I don't even remember what it was, Nova, something like that. And he hadn't had it for very long. And so basically I remember getting into the car after we left the bar. And from that point on, this is all just from what I was told it happened. And so I was behind the passenger seat. S was sitting behind the driver's seat. T's driving, and B is actually hanging out of the window, like, woo, partying, like we're flying home. So it was like, I think a 35-mile-an-hour road, and apparently we were doing 50 or 55, and the road turns, and we didn't turn, and we hit the pole head on. And so what happened was the engine block came into the car, and T was killed instantly. I hit all of my left side, and then S on the other side, he had all his injuries were on his right side. B was thrown, which actually saved his life, even though he broke both his femurs and had other issues going on. There was a fire station across the street from where the accident happened, and they said if that were not there, I probably would not have survived, because they got the jaws of life, immediately took us to the hospital. I had 4 blood transfusions. And honestly, I don't remember about 11 days after the accident, even though apparently I was talking with people. My parents were actually in New Orleans and got a phone call from my brother. And I don't even know how they found my brother to call him to let them know what had happened. And so, yeah, it just, I did a number. Yeah, so, it was one of those things that, again, 11 days I don't remember, but my 21st birthday happened. But the next day, apparently, my brain started to allow me to have memories again. And I asked my mom, I was like, whose presents are those over on the table? And she's like, those are yours. Don't you remember opening them yesterday? And I was like, no, I don't. So it was like, that's my first memory post all of this accident. And they basically had to tell me that, yeah, you can't walk right now. You're sort of bedridden. They're still figuring out what you might be capable of doing. So it was pretty crazy to wake up and they had to tell me T died. And so just all of this information to learn about was pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Yeah. So I was in the hospital for, I believe, a month. And then they transferred me to a rehab center, and I was there for 3 weeks, or flip it. I can't remember exactly, because again, things are a little hazy around there, but was transferred to this rehab hospital to where, again, I just had to do occupational therapy. I couldn't look at a book without the words and the letters getting jumbled. I couldn't read. I had a really hard time recalling things. I remember they showed pictures, and there was a picture of a ladder, and I was like, you stand on it, you climb on it, but I couldn't recall what the actual word was. And then anytime I was above 45-degree angle, I had to wear a back brace because of the fusion. Well, I didn't have a fusion then. They put hardware in my back because, again, when I got there, I just had so much broken with me. They had to, just triage and do whatever they could to keep me whole. And every day was just, sit up for 2 minutes and then I'd be exhausted. Can I sit up for 5 minutes today? It was just like basically learning how to just be. And then after all of the sort of intensive therapies, like physical therapy, occupational therapy. I remember doing water therapy, emotional, all of the stuff kind of going on the first 6-7 weeks post accident. I then actually had to move back to St. Louis to go live with my parents because I couldn't take care of myself. I was in a wheelchair and did outpatient therapy every day while I was there until I got to the point that I basically graduated from a wheelchair, then had a walker, and then I had a cane, and then I was finally upright. So the year of 96, I was in a back brace for 8 months. And it sucked. But one of the most therapeutic things I've ever done was when I was done with that back brace, we went to, it's called Left Hand Canyon. It's right outside of Boulder, and you used to be able to go up there and shoot. I think you can still. And my friend had a 9mm, and I went up, I blew the shit out of that damn back brace. It was so awesome. It was like the best thing ever. Yeah. Every May in Boulder, they have what's called the Boulder Boulder. It's like I think you can do a half marathon. I forget there's like a qualifying race for marathon training. Or they also have like a 10K that you can do. So, as I'm in the hospital, again, before I could even do anything, I remember looking at the TV and I was like, next year we're going to do that. Like I said that to my parents. We're going to go walk that Boulder next year. Because like that was my like determination. Like I'm going to fucking walk again, like I was determined, hopefully, to do that. And I was blessed enough that am able to be mobile and I'm not paralyzed. And there's so many things that could have gone wrong, for as bad as it was. Like I'm at least, I'm very blessed. And so a year went by and the Boulder happened. And so my parents were in town and we walked the Boulder and we were the very last people to walk through the finish line, but I freaking did it, man, so like here I am at the age of 21 because they rate you on your age group. And so it was like I was the last person on that list, but I did not give a shit. I was like, this is such an accomplishment. I lived through this god-awful experience and like I'm able now to be here today with my folks walking this Boulder together, and I remember even halfway through the race, and it still happens sometimes, my left foot gets that like sort of pins and needles feeling to it. And so I remember we had to stop and I had to like sit down and rest for a minute, but then like got back up and finished the race. And I'm assuming if you asked them that they were probably extremely proud of that on that day as well, because I pretty much scared the shit out of them. I scared the shit out of everybody, including myself, so that we were able to be there together and do that it's amazing, Don't ever, don't ever drink and drive. Like, call a cab, stumble, sleep behind a bush, don't do it. It's just, don't ever think that you can get away with it. Or, again, I got away with it a lot, but there was that one time that I didn't. And it's the what I went through, I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. It's the absolute worst thing. I would never want to go through that again. I would never want to put my family or my friends through that again. I would never want to do that, anyone to do that. But I wouldn't be here if that didn't have that wouldn't have happened. So it's a blessing. It's a blessing. So I would tell anybody, don't be stupid. There's cabs. There's so many other things that you can do. Or don't get a shit canned. Or if you are going to get shit canned, which, you can do that. Thanks. Just don't. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. I would never have probably gone back to college were it not for what I went through. Because I actually used to be a hairdresser. And then after the car accident I was in, I was unable to work for a few years, actually. And in particular, there was no way I was ever going to be able to do the sort of standing, bending. It just would have been harder on my body just because of what I went through. So that I actually went to college. And so I absolutely love my job because it's all about trying to end mass incarceration, get people out of the criminal justice system and into a more healthcare focused path. I was this close to not being here, so trying to keep with that mindset, is challenging on a day-to-day basis. But that, given this gift, like, try to embrace, my family when I see them, or making sure I come visit friends when I can and have fun and enjoy each other's company. And I think it speaks to, again, what my work and my drive of, I believe that there are injustices in the world, and I want to try to address and fix those so that other people that are suffering, even though it might be different than my experience, I know that people are suffering due to, mine was because I made a really bad choice on a day, but a lot of people make bad choices and I think deserve second chances. And so I know that's why to this day, is my husband says that I go on puppy walks all the time, and I know that it's because I always think it's because I value that, like, the fact that, like, I can frickin' walk, so I want to take advantage of this gift of being here still,
If you enjoyed this story and you'd like to see photographs of Terri, head over to our website, afaceproject.com, and look under our podcast menu. There you'll find this and other podcast episodes that we've published, along with the photographs of each storyteller. And if you are interested in possibly sharing your story on an upcoming episode of our podcast, check the About menu on our website. There you'll find information on sharing your story, what to expect in an interview, and definitely share that info with anybody that you think might also have a great story to tell. As you've probably heard me say a few times, A Face Project is stories told by volunteers from around the world, so we wouldn't be able to do this without all of our generous volunteer storytellers. One other thing I'd like to mention is that the first issue of our magazine will be coming out soon. The magazine will be published quarterly and features transcriptions and photographs from all of the stories that you hear on the podcast. Volume 1, Issue 1 is a 10 by 10, 100-ish page publication with color and black and white photos. You can find out more about the magazine on our website, afaceproject.com, and you can order yours there as well. This episode was recorded and produced by myself, Natalie Jennings, and Daniel Zamzow. Photography by Natalie Jennings, web layout and design by Aaron Woods, music by soundimage.org. And a special thank you to all of our listeners and subscribers. If you enjoyed today's podcast and are a new listener, head over to iTunes. There you can subscribe, and if you're enjoying the podcast, leave us a review in iTunes. Reviews help us not only to reach a larger group of people, but they give new listeners a little bit more information about what we're all about. Thanks very much, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Walking your dog?
No, walking myself. I'm the puppy and I need to go walk myself. Yeah. I'll start getting ants in the pants if I sit still for too long. Yeah.